Hello everyone, good evening. Today we will do our presentation about gender issues, especially for gender in education. We will do the presentation as a group 3. There are Gina, Cecilia, and Tripina. Here I provide the topic that we will discuss for today. First, we will discuss about short historical before 1960s. And then we will discuss about short historical after 1960s. And the last is we will do the activity 1.
This slide will talk about gender. Gender is the range of characteristics pertaining to femininity and masculinity and differentiating between them. Gender is used to describe the characteristics of women and men that are socially constructed, while sex refers to those that are biologically determined. Gender issues. Gender issues includes education, equality, and human rights. So, what is meant by gender equality? Gender equality is a fundamental human right, and that right is violated by gender-based discrimination. What is meant by gender inequality? Gender inequality is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender that causing one sex or gender to be routinely privileged or prioritized over another. What is meant by gender differences in education? Gender differences in education means that a type of gender discrimination in the education system affecting women and men during and after their educational experiences. Achieving gender equality requires the engagement of women and men, girls and boys. It is everyone's responsibility, like Ban Ki-moon stated. A short historical before 1960. According to Cole 2000, the education of children in the 19th century was organized along the lines of a social class. Girls rarely features in general histories of masculine around the 90s. The school curriculum still differentiated between boys and girls lessons. So, boys and girls didn't have the same access to a common curriculum. And then during that time, state policy endorsed the view that women were different from men. No one asked what the implications were for equality in this. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, gender stereotype about male superiority still reinforced. Education has always been influenced by gender and class. Women's education in Britain was designed to teach middle class and upper class girls to make them attractive marriage material for men. Education was seen as a way of making women better wives and mothers, not as a way of transforming their life. One parliamentary report in the 19th century said girls should be educated to be decorative, modest, and marriageable beings, and lessons often included music, Latin, Greek, and class in social grace and etiquette. Only the privileged few were taught to a high level in subjects such as mathematics, and this was usually alongside their brothers. Frankly said, back then women just educated to be good wives and mothers.
Short historical after 1960s. The history begins in the 1960s when the radical restructuring of English opened up new responsibilities for change driven by human capital theory with the principle that the role of education is very important for the development of economic growth. In addition, a reassessment of a concept of equal access for boys and girls sees a gradual shift to a non-selective secondary school system in England and Wales, thereby accelerating the number of children attending mixed government schools. Thus, the change in the balance of power between female and male staff in senior and managerial positions become mixed, or not dominated by men only. Then, the accepted norm gradually shifts to something like mixed-sex schools are better than single-sex school. In short, with this change, girls are expected to be able to influence the civilizing of their male friends. Furthermore, during this era, feminists raised gender discrimination to promote women's rights related to the concept of fair treatment and equality. This action gave a good result when the Equality Commissions, or EOC, is empowered to eliminate unfair behavior of the court. But this effort also faces challenges where patriarchal relationships persist in school, and there is a high level of sex stereotype in student choices. For example, boys taking female subjects are considered to learn skills that can be used for the future, and they are considering taken more seriously than their female counterpart in the same class. While for girls who take boys' lessons are considered only interested in flirting to the boys. But even so, preliminary analysis of the education provisions of the sex discrimination laws still shows mild success. For example, just fewer female candidates fail the GCE, O-Level, and CSE exam when it compared to males. Then, in the middle 1980s, education in England had a national goal, that is quality. Therefore, education can provide opportunities for women to think at an individual or social level. But even so, women are still concentrated in fields that consider suitable for them. For example, like hairdressing work. Meanwhile, men are more concentrated in jobs such as engineering or the motor industry. Finally, we move to 1990s. At this time, gender discrimination still exists in education. For example, the success of a woman is more often seen as the result of perseverance than ability. Women's lives are still limited by household responsibilities and family life.
Models review. Before 1960s, girls were less likely to be sent to school. Boys and girls didn't have the same access common curriculum. After 1960s, there were new changes for girls' education, especially there was Equal Opportunities Commission, EOC, next to the activity. Read learning activity 1 carefully and compare it with your own situation in Indonesia. Do you have the same experiences as people in the West? Discuss your opinion with your friends and write it down in a paper. The answer: the described situation in the text is an entirely from the orientation gifts that exist in Indonesian around then, where young ladies are likewise not shipped off school to get similar training or education as young men, yet they should stay at home and simply be instructed to be great housewives. The thing that matters is that young ladies in the West get civic illustrations or lessons at school. However, in Indonesia, around then they just learn at home from their moms. So there is no opportunity for young ladies in Indonesia to associate at school. Likely, I have never had such an experience like that because I grew up in the family that always view equality over girls or boys.
So that's all for our presentation. Hope it can give you new knowledge and thank you for your attention.